Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Mortgage Process. I, of course, am your host, Greg Wareham. We got a great show for you today. We have Corinne Kaas. Did I pronounce it correctly?
You did.
K-A-A-S.
K-A-A-S, yeah.
And you're from Harmonizing Homes, which is a home staging company. Now, how did you get into the home staging business,
It
Corinne?
was a long process. This is actually my second career.
Okay.
I was in the business world at
Okay.
first, and I always had an interest in interior design and had studied it throughout the years. So,
would you have a natural flair for it?
yeah, well, my background is I was the daughter of a contractor,
Okay.
so that's kind of in my blood.
Got it.
He had a lot of interior design friends, so I was always in that world
Sure.
of contracting and interior design.
Well, your last name ends in a vowel, your
Yes,
maiden name, right?
yes, it does.
Well, you got to be in contracting.
Yes, it does. That's so true. But during my career, I went back to school for interior design in New York City. I was living there at the time, and then studied there. When I lost my job, then
Okay.
I got kind of thrown into what am I going to do now?
Sure.
So I started doing interior design, but kind of had a feeling that I wanted to get into the home staging.
Okay.
So I would kind of played around with that, and then it was in New York City where I started, which was very difficult.
Was it hard to crack in just based on the nature of the city?
It was, and it's very
Okay.
hard to stage in the city, if you can imagine.
I can imagine.
You know,
I was just there this weekend. I was at the Met this weekend with my family for Mother's Day. I mean, I don't know how you could possibly stage in the city. How do you bring the furniture in?
you dump it on the sidewalk, and then you kind of
Okay.
bring it in from there.
All right. That sounds fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So then we moved out of the city and moved back into Ocean County. I'm in Toms River, and it took about 4 years or so to really start building a clientele.
Sure.
Working with different realtors and investors, and trying to reach out to different people. So now we're pretty established as
That's great.
yeah. We're doing both interior design and home staging, but mostly home staging.
Okay. So what's the process, right? So when I walk into a house, I look at it and I go, where's the bathroom and the kitchen and the stove? So when you walk into a house, you're seeing a totally different vision as to what you want to do with it. What's kind of the process on that?
So 98% of our stagings are vacant.
Okay.
Vacant meaning there's no furniture in. So either the people have moved out, or an investor has flipped the home, or
Sure.
it's a brand new build.
Okay.
So we'll go in, and what we actually do is we take measurements and pictures of the entire house, of the rooms we're going to do.
Okay.
And the primary rooms are usually the living room, the dining room, kitchen, family room, and the primary bedroom.
Okay.
So we take measurements of all that, and then we go back to the office, and we actually use like a CAD system, and we draw it all up, and
Okay.
then place the furniture.
Like an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we place furniture in there, and then we actually have a inventory system, and then we go through our inventory system to see, do we have a king bed? Do we have an 86-inch sofa? Do we have and it depends on the style too of the house.
Sure.
Once we do that, then we have somebody that pulls all the furniture.
Okay.
Then we have other stagers that will pull all the accessories, the art, pillows, bedding, rugs, everything that goes with that.
So now when you're
Design.
putting it into the CAD software, is it do the colors and everything like that?
Well, I have somebody that has just joined us and is really into doing all the colors
Okay.
also, which is great, So when we actually give the stagers a picture of it, it's actually the colors of the walls and the floors, so they kind of know how to go with that.
Sure. Now, and then as far as the inventory is concerned, because that's a big piece of it. So, okay, you go in and this is where everything's going to go. Here's the layout. Here's the colors and all of that. Like, where do you get the stuff?
That comes Depending on if it's a fast, like if we have something we have to do in a few days, I might just go to Wayfair or Home Good or Home Sense or that kind of thing.
Sure.
But when I do my planning for the year, I'm going to bigger wholesale furniture stores, like Coaster, Furniture of America, Diamond, different furniture stores that we use that is for trade also.
Okay.
But what we do, we try to do it twice a year, is go to High Point, North Carolina, where they
Makes
have
sense.
the spring and the fall show, so we could see all the new trends, and which is important in staging because you want to make sure that you're on trend when
Right.
you're showing the
No,
house.
it's critical.
Yeah.
So you own all the furniture.
I own all the furniture.
So what do you have, a warehouse? Like, where do you keep all this stuff?
Yeah, well, at first, when I was just evolving,
Yeah.
I had it in my house. So it was in the basement, it was in the garage.
Sure.
Then it was getting a little ridiculous. Then we had some storage units. So we
Okay.
had 1, we had 2, we had 3, we had 4. And it was like I was taking the whole aisle of the storage facility. And then I bit the bullet and went to a warehouse.
Okay.
And I was really nervous about that. But,
Sure.
you know,
It's a big
so-
commitment.
It is. And I had to sign a lease for 3 years. The day that I signed it was March of 2020. And we all know what happened after that.
Oh, God, right.
So COVID hit. We were shut down.
Right.
And it was, it was hard. It was
Right.
hard to, get through all that. But we made it. We made it. Thank God.
Right. So you have all of this stuff in a warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to catalog everything. You got to know where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know what goes with what. That's really fascinating because as the average consumer, you think, all right, a house is being staged.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're going to put some furniture in there and make everything work. But the logistics, if you own the company, there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
To your point, just about keeping up on current trends. What do you think the shelf life is of trends?
I would say about 3 years, and not so much of the trends with the furniture. Like you're actually picking it up, moving it, and bringing it back, and bringing it, back to another house. So it's a little, the nicks and dings and whatnot.
Sure.
I mean, you fix it as best as you can with a little paint or a magic marker, or what. But after a while, it gets a little worn. And what we do then is we sell it, or we donate it.
Okay.
Depending on at that time what we're going to do with it.
How often do you circle the inventory through?
About every 3 years, I
Okay.
would say. Yeah.
Wow.
So right now we've gotten a lot of big projects. So we're buying a lot more furniture. So as that comes back, once the house is sold, then we'll get rid of the older stuff.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking it through. So if you have a multi-million-dollar house, you're talking huge square footage,
Right.
and you have to fill the whole thing.
Well, we just did a 10,000 square foot house
Wow.
in Spring Lake.
Wow.
We did not do all of the rooms because it was
too much.
It was too much. So they had They had a primary suite, and then they had a secondary suite
Okay.
with a sitting room in each.
Right. Well, I like this set. We need that. Nick, we need a sitting room in my house. We need 2 of them. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we did both of those. We did there was a sitting area by a bar, the bar area,
Okay.
the living room, the dining room. It was an open concept. And then we did upstairs on the 3rd floor. There was a wide open entertainment room that we
Okay.
did up there. So
Plus, I would imagine the things you have to put into a house, a multi-million-dollar house like that, it's got to be nice stuff.
so that
You're
was
not putting
all
lounge chairs in there, right?
that was all purchased new for
Right.
that. So we're keeping fingers crossed that somebody buys the house and buys all the furniture with it.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So how do you know what works, Corinne? How do you know? How do you know what people are interested in when you put it in there and it's going to be appealing to the eye?
Because it's not, when I say on trend, it's not like, it's kind of generic on trend. We're
Right.
kind of staying with the whites and blues and yellows. We're just
Makes sense.
pop in purple in there for an accent chair, that which might be in trend now. But we just kind of stay very neutral. All our furniture is neutral, and we just accessorize it with the artwork and the pillows and blankets.
Is there ever a need to paint the house at all?
Yes, so that's a different situation. If it's, say, somebody's moving in an occupied house, say, we'll go in and it's well worth the money to do our consultation. And we actually go in and say, you have to paint these red walls and the navy blue walls and make it all white,
right?
Or very light color. And those that do follow our recommendations actually make out well as far as their house selling faster. Because honestly, if you walk in and all their walls are dark, you're going to feel closed in.
You make a great point with that, because people, when it's your house, you have that emotional attachment, right?
Exactly.
Like, well, I love this red wall. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, that's not appealing to the consumer. They don't care about your individual flavor. They want something they can picture themselves in.
Exactly, because all they're looking is like, how am I going to get rid of these red walls?
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they're not even going past that. Right. So you want to make it clean and bright when you have an occupied home. So what we do is we actually walk through, give them a recommendation and a written list, and they do everything that we ask them to do. And if they want us to bring some accessories and artwork in after, we'll do that also.
Now, as part of the process to say, here's my written recommendation, and do people sometimes read it and say, well, I'm not doing this, and they start crossing things out? Does it become a negotiation, is my point? Or you're just like, I can't do this if you don't follow the rules?
I can tell them what to do, but if they don't do it, that's on them.
Right.
I had worked for one airline pilot that did every single thing that I told him to do.
Yeah.
Everything. And his house sold for $100,000 over asking.
That's great.
So, but he listened to everything, and he had a lot of work to do. He really did.
Now, for someone like the airline pilot, was the house vacant that he was selling?
No, it was occupied.
Would you mind talking about that a little bit? Because I would think that'd be super complicated to do.
It was very complicated. But like I said, he was willing to do whatever we wanted him to do because he had his heart set on moving out, I think, to Nevada or someplace he was going.
Okay.
But for him, for example, being a pilot, traveled a lot. So he had a lot of artifacts.
Okay.
And although they were beautiful, you did not want to come in and see this gigantic jade ship from China, I mean, it was pretty.
Right, but not everyone's flavor.
No.
Right.
So he actually packed up all the artifacts, painted all the walls. The trim was a dark brown, and we had him paint all the trim also.
Yeah.
We had him get rid of a certain amount of furniture that was really kind of dated. He was a bachelor, so he kind of, lived in his furniture. Yeah.
Black leather sofa, you got to have it.
Yes.
Big screen TV.
Yep,
All right.
Yep. Downstairs with the cup holders.
Was it electric reclining?
Yes, there were.
You got to have it.
Yes, heated toilet seats a little bit. But he was great. Yeah. Now he collects Harleys. So in his garage, he had like a ton of Harleys and their parts. And so we had to kind of you got to get rid of some of the stuff. So he had to get a storage unit and, get rid of things because he had a huge garage, but you never know it.
Okay.
And he had a hole downstairs where he had a lot of exercise equipment and whatnot. So we edited a lot of that and just made it look bigger and wider and
sure.
Yeah, but it was good.
Yeah, and that's so he moved everything out, and then you handle everything, right? We have the movers, we're going to move it, here's where we're going to store it and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think the consumer they can miss the boat on that. People like things that are appealing to the eye. And I know I've said it a few times because, it takes a lot for someone to move their stuff out of their house and do all of that. But if you're going to get $100,000 over asking, could be very well worth it.
Exactly. But the fact is that they're going to be moving anyway. So start getting rid of your things that you're not going to be using, or you're not going to pay all that money to move that from New Jersey to Nevada. I mean,
Right.
that's going to cost a fortune.
That's a great point.
So, go through your things and edit what you're going to really want to bring with you and what you don't need. So
I kind of love that process because when being someone who's bought and sold a few different houses, an overwhelming part of that is, okay, I sold my house. What am I going to do with all my stuff?
right.
Right. And then you have to go for the process
Right.
versus handling the process up front. You're not going to keep everything.
Right. So what did you do? Did you get rid of some things?
We did.
Oh.
We did. And then if you go up into my attic, we got a lot of stuff up there.
That you just brought from one house to the other.
Yeah, because you bring the stuff there and you're
Yeah.
like, what do we got all this stuff for?
Right, right.
We moved from a bigger house to a smaller house. So we were in Sparta, New Jersey, and then we relocated here in Monmouth County. And the house is a little bit smaller, but it's not furniture, it's all the accessories, right? You got all these mirrors and little tables and things that you just, one, they get dated, and two, when we got it all there, we're like, it doesn't even work in the house.
No.
We should have given it away.
Right, right. Or have a garage sale, get rid of it.
But I think part of the problem with that is if you're not talking to a third party, you're blind to it because you don't have the objectivity.
Right.
Because you're emotionally attached to the entire process.
many realtors will help you through the process too.
Right.
But some realtors would rather have another party come in and take care of that for them, especially the realtors that are so busy right now. But they'll always tell you, get rid of your personal items. I'm sure they told you that,
Yeah.
take down your pictures. You don't want to have.
So they didn't.
They didn't.
No.
Okay.
No one wanted to see my 4 kids. They couldn't picture themselves in the house.
Because people get sidetracked and they're looking at
Yeah.
your things, and you don't want them looking at
Yeah.
your things. You want them looking at the house.
Right.
You want to depersonalize the house.
Right. No, that's a great point. So what are the stats on how much quicker a house sells if it's staged correctly, or, what's the statistics on if it goes for, percentage over asking price?
Yeah. So I wrote some of this down because I figured you were going to ask this. 87% of our houses that we stage sold within 30 days.
Wow.
88% sold over asking.
Wow.
And the average day on market, it was 17.
Wow.
Now,
That's fantastic.
of course, we all know what the market is like right now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's still pretty hot.
Sure.
It's just not that much inventory right now.
Right.
But it is changing. Investors that I work with, when I say investors, these are people that buy properties and then flip them.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually finding properties now to work with, where last year, year before,
Couldn't do it.
they weren't finding anything. So
Sure.
things
Well,
are changing.
Yeah,
a
I
bit.
mean, part of it's market driven, but as you and I both know, if pretty houses sell, ugly houses, they don't sell.
They don't sell.
Or they certainly don't sell for significantly over asking price or sell in a very short period of time.
Right.
So, and in a market like this, the kiss of death is the house has been on the market for 60
For
days.
60 days, exactly.
Right? So now more than ever, you want to make sure it's a price to sell, and then in addition to that it's aesthetically put together to sell
Right.
as well.
So we just did one in on the bay, in Barnegat Bay in Bricktown.
Okay.
And it went on the market prior. It was a new construction, so it went on the market prior to being completed. But there was a lot of pushback on it because it was that reverse living. So the bedrooms were downstairs and the living area was upstairs.
Right.
So they brought us into stage.
Okay.
And the builder had never used a stager before, so this was new for her. So I had to basically, walk her through the process and show her what we were going to do. And she was very involved with, the furnishing selections, which I normally don't do.
Sure.
But I wanted her to be comfortable. And so we did it, and she was very happy with it. But it's a different way of living, where all your family is downstairs and then the living area is upstairs with a master upstairs also. So.
Sure. No, makes sense. And it's all the There's just so much detail that goes behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because each house, to your point, it's kind of a reverse house. Well, that gets staged a different way than the Center Hall Colonial does, that the
Right.
bi-level might, that the
Right.
mansion may be staged. It all kind of varies depending on the individual project.
And various different types of furniture, and it depends on your demographics.
Yeah, great point.
When you're going to be in like Oakhurst area, you want things that are going to be a little more shiny and very ultra modern. We're down, say, in Ocean County on the Barnegat Bay, you want things that are going to be a little warm, comfortable, beachy looking.
That's such a great point, because I'm thinking about your house in Spring Lake. Okay, well, that is a beachy type of area. Well, that's different than true suburbia.
Right.
Right?
Right.
There's no anchors on the wall. And
No.
I'm not saying that you put one on the
Right.
wall, but you know what? It's a whole different vibe.
Yeah, no flip-flops or anchors.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, Corinne. And we'll be right back at you. Greg Wareham, and we have Corinne Koss. We'll be right back at you in 2 minutes. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Your Mortgage Process. I'm, of course, Greg Wareham. We have Corinne Koss today.
How are you?
Oh, it's good to see you again, Corinne.
Thank you.
Well, you didn't go anywhere.
Just took a sip of water.
Right. So I have a question for you about the exterior.
Okay.
Do you do anything with the exterior? Or you walk and be like, oh, man, there's so many things I could do to the interior of this property. But when you walk up the steps.
That's a good question. You want the house to have some curb appeal. Even if you're not going to paint the exterior of your house, paint the front door. Make it a bold color. Make it an orange or red or a yellow. Something
Sure.
that's going to be attractive. And then, if depending on the time of the year, you want to surround it with some potted flowers or whatnot. But you want to make the yard clean, neat. Power wash if you're power wash the house, the sidewalk if you're not going to paint. But
Right.
you need somebody to be going down the street and say, "Oh, that house is for sale. It's really cute."
Right. No, it's a great point. And the front door is critical, whether or not you're painting it or restaining it.
Right.
That is your first impression as you walk in. Is the yard kept? And then, all right, I'm walking through the door, and then all your beautiful work that's been done inside.
Right. And then another thing is odor. You want to make sure there's
Don't come to my house.
There's no.
I told you,
odor.
4 kids and a dog.
Sweaty socks.
Right. 2 boys, 2 girls. They go either way.
Yep. Sometimes girls are worse, but I won't go there.
That's another conversation for another day.
But odor, especially if you have a lot of animals.
Right.
That's important because the first thing you're walking through that nicely painted door, and then the odor hits you in the face. So
Sure.
you have to make sure you're going to either, do a deep cleaning, shampoo your rugs, try to, eliminate the odors as much as you can. But yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is most off-putting? I know smoking would be very off-putting to someone who doesn't smoke to walk into the house.
Pet odor to me.
Do you refer that out to someone who can clean it up?
Well, yes,
Okay.
of course. But, I even think twice about if I'm going to put my furniture in here because I don't want that odor to absorb in my furniture because it's
makes
soft
sense.
goods, right?
Yeah.
So it's
That's a tough conversation. That's where you have to have great bedside manner with the consumer as well. I mean, it's hard to tell someone their house stinks.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day on it, humans have a scent. Right? And whether or not you walk into my house, your house, Nick's house, whoever's house, they all smell a little bit different. And then, but we also, those certain smells that, like pet odor, that someone may have become accustomed to, and tell them, listen, we got to kind of do a little bit better here if we want to sell.
Right.
And being able to deliver that gently.
Yeah.
So if you walk into a house, what's the most important room to nail?
It would probably be your family room.
Okay.
Living room area, I would say, because that's where your family's going to hang. The next one is the kitchen. Everybody loves to be in the kitchen, so we want to make that as cozy and welcoming as we can.
So even if someone's going to make an investment in paint and those types of things, and they want to limit their expenditures, man, you got to nail family room, living room, and kitchen.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So like I said in the beginning, it's the living room, dining room, kitchen, primary bedroom, family. Did I say family? And family
family.
room would be the most important to stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't need all of the bedrooms. What was happening during the pandemic, everybody was working from home. So we always made sure we did if there was a smaller bedroom, we would make that into an office
Okay.
so that they could see that, they could have an office.
It's interesting because when it's the family room and the living room, they're also generally the most cluttered rooms in a house.
Right.
Right. So I could kind of see all right, you got to declutter this. There's a lot of work goes into that.
Mostly the family room, though.
Yeah.
That's,
So you get the formal living room and the
right.
family, right?
Nobody usually uses the living room anymore. But the family room, what people tend to do is buy oversized furniture because they want to be comfortable watching TV with their family. And I get that. But when you're taking photos and you're presenting the house, it looks too cluttered.
Yeah,
so that's
a great point.
where you have to kind of slim down on the furnishings.
That's a great point. I'm not going to let you come into my house with your interior designer background because my wife wants to replace the big couch that I love because it's ugly. But it's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
It is your place at night where you're going to sit. So you want it to be comfortable. But if you're selling your house, you don't want that couch there.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare a client to have a home stager come in with working with the real estate agent? Like, is there a process that you think the agent can help with to kind of prepare people for, hey, maybe you need to talk to Corinne?
Right. And that's usually, New Jersey's been a little slow getting on board with staging. Mm-hmm. Texas, California, Florida, huge staging, Virginia, huge staging states.
Is that because of the new construction in those states, you think?
Perhaps.
Okay.
Perhaps. North Jersey's been big. Down this end, very slow. We're just getting to educate the realtors in the importance of staging. Many realtors still don't believe in staging.
Sure.
But there are realtors that will approach their client and say, I think you need to have your home staged. And they'll call me if I'm their stager, or they'll call their stager in. And then what happens then is the same process I told you before, that we go through the house and figure out what we need to keep, what we're going to get rid of, that kind of a thing. Some realtors will pay half of the staging costs.
Okay.
They'll split it with their buyers because they really feel that it's important to have staged.
Sure.
Other realtors will do the whole thing, or some just have the homeowner pay for it.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Makes sense. Have you ever been into a house where there's a hoarding situation?
Yes.
And did you handle the whole process with that?
No.
Okay.
We worked with the realtor, but it was more the realtor that took charge on the hoarding aspect of it with getting a dumpster and whatnot. But yeah.
And they took care of it, and you came in, staged it, and sold the house.
Yeah.
All right, I got the $1 million question for you.
Yeah.
What does it cost to have a house staged?
That's really a great question. So typically, say on a 10,000 square foot plus, it's usually 0.5% of the asking price.
Okay.
For the typical house, like I mentioned before, the primary rooms, it runs about $3,800.
Okay.
And that's for 2 months. And then it's a monthly fee after that to rent the furniture going forward.
Makes sense. Does it get progressively more expensive the longer you need the furniture, or less expensive? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. It'll say it's 20% of the whole fee, so it'll be the same going forward.
And would it be typical that it's a 60-day rental?
Yes, in this market, yes.
Okay.
It's usually 60 days. You don't need it to do, the higher price houses are going to be on the market longer.
Sure, makes sense.
But the typical 500 to 730 5,000 is usually 60 days is good.
Okay. 3,800. I sell my house for, I don't know, 50 plus thousand over asking price. It sells in 17 days. Yeah,
It's
right?
a good rate of return.
It's a pretty good rate of return
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, it is.
And you're not getting nickel and dime. Like, that's part of it. I think that when something's kind of doesn't meet the consumer's eye, all of a sudden they start looking at other things that they may not be looking at.
Right, right.
Right? Where if you come in and you're like, wow, you might start, that's what captures your eye, the aesthetics of it. And you don't look as deep, let's say.
Right,
It's
right.
something that you're kind of like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that seems really reasonable with a huge rate of return on it.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But that's our average stage. I mean, when we go, we have done littler homes, say for the 2,800, and bigger homes for, like I said, half a percentage of asking. Only because of the quality of furniture that you have to put in these and the work that goes and is involved with the larger homes. It's,
I mean, you got to buy the furniture.
yeah, yeah. And
You got to depreciate that, I think, on taxes. I would think there's a whole math behind that.
there is. I don't get into that. Okay. Yes, my accountant
the
does
accountant.
that.
Got it,
Yes,
got it.
yes, there is a depreciation on the furniture.
What's the timeline look like from the time, okay, I want to get a stager? What's it take to get the property staged time-wise?
Okay, usually it's in with a week to 2 weeks,
Okay.
depending on how busy we are. But we try to get there out ASAP to see the property. If I can't get out there, I usually have them send me photographs or the listing. If they have the listing up, they'll send me the listing, and I can give them a ballpark on just the listing. That usually helps them a lot.
And do you ever have people that just want to have it done virtually?
I don't do virtual, but
Okay.
I refer them to Motion City Media for
We
their
may or may not know those guys.
Yeah, maybe we do, maybe we don't. They do an amazing job, and I'm not against virtual staging, but what's happened is people look at online and they see it looks great, and then they get there and it's like it's not there.
Sure.
And so it's kind of like
You bait and switched them.
right,
Yeah.
and certain people like Motion City really does an outstanding job, but some are really good that you can't tell. But it's when the consumer walks into the home and doesn't see what they saw online.
No, makes sense.
So unless
That would frustrate me as a consumer.
right,
Like, what am I doing here?
yeah, it's a lot more affordable for most of the realtors do pay for that themselves, and it is a lot more affordable than the staging itself.
And when do you come into the process? Is it usually after a listing agreement's been signed and then they bring you in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Normally, if they want us to come in, we'll do that right after a listing agreement.
You know, you can even see a market for it with, okay, if you know what the condition of the house is going to be, because people have a pretty good idea. Even at the time of getting the listing, I could see that having value because you're in there with the creative eye. Oh, here's how we're going to sell it. Here's how we're going to aesthetically put it in the
Right.
spot it needs to be to market it. I could actually see a great relationship with you and the real estate agent, even at the listing appointment.
Right. What we do, have done in the past, is we'll have a conversation as who are their what are the demographics, who are they marketing to,
Sure.
And then depending on that demographics, that's how we style the house. So if it's going to be a family of 4, we might set up a little teepee in the corner of the bedroom and that kind of thing to make it more appealing to families. So when the little girl boy goes running upstairs, they'll go, into the teepee.
That's a great point. And I'm thinking age too has bearing on that.
Yeah.
Right? If the age bracket is 60 plus for a particular home versus 35 or under, it matters. There's different tastes associated with that.
And it's great feedback when you hear that the child went up and tagged the room. This is my room. So
I love the TV.
yeah,
It's such a great idea.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
And it matters.
Yes,
It matters.
It does matter. So yeah, like I said before, if it's a 65 plus community or 55 plus, we do it a little differently, but we try to keep it not transitional. Yeah, transitional.
Transitional, right.
Yeah. rather than traditional. That's
Yeah,
where I
makes
was thinking.
sense. Yep.
Because they're used to the traditional, and being up North Jersey, all of a sudden going to come down to the 55 plus. So we want to make it different. You don't
Right.
want the same old, same old.
That's a great point as well. It's a new life. It's a new birth. It's
Exactly.
a new. Yeah, no, that's great.
Exactly. Sure.
So if I was a real estate agent or a consumer or a builder, Corinne, and I was interested in staging or having a conversation with an expert like yourself, what would be the best way for me to reach you?
Oh, we have a beautiful website. Can I say it?
Of course you can.
It's www.harmonize, HARMONIZE, homes.com. Or you can call me at my phone, 917-699-1262.
Is there an email address for you as well?
There is. It's my first name, Corinne, and my last name, Kaas, at harmonize.com.
That's fantastic. And listen, anyone out there, if you have questions about staging, reach out to Corinne. I mean, you obviously know what you're talking about, and I love it. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you.
I know you're super
I enjoyed
busy.
it.
Oh, it's great having you.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't so bad, right?
No, it was easy.
With that being said, I want to thank you again for being here today.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
It's a good time, right?
Yeah.
And we want to thank everyone for listening. Look forward to catching up with you next week. Greg Wareham with Your Mortgage Process. Thanks, guys. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Your Mortgage Process, hosted by Greg Wareham, produced by Greg Wareham and Nick Pavis at The Social Rift, and executively produced by The Social Rift. Thank you again for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.